Everybody, welcome to another brand new episode of the Because Cannabis podcast every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Because when I smoke weed, you get it. 4:20 p.m. Hey, Dustin Kava, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, man.
Love it. 4:20 p.m. Brand new episodes of the Because Cannabis podcast every single Wednesday on YouTube. Hey, do us a favor right now. We've been putting out some amazing content. Today's show is going to be unbelievable. We've had some great guests. We're doing issue 2 live streams. Give us a follow, give us a subscription, click that button right now. We would definitely appreciate that if you could help us out. Or let's say you're not a YouTube fan because you're lame. You listen on Spotify because you're awesome. See what I did there? Switched your story around. Spotify with video, new episodes every single Thursday, as well as anywhere you listen to audio podcasts, except Dustin. And they say better late than never. And I don't know if that's true or not, but in our case it is, except today. Today's a Thursday and we're releasing a brand new episode on YouTube and Spotify is on Friday, but not normally. You know, do you believe that phrase, Dustin, better late than never? Is that like a thing? Is it better to put it out at all? Or sometimes if you don't put it out, should you just squirrel away and not do it?
No, I am a better late than never, even though I think when you give yourself the freedom to be late, you will be late. So if you ever hear someone say like,
oh, that's an amazing,
you ask someone like, are you going to the party? And they're like, yeah, I think I'll be able to go. You're like, you automatically know you're fucking not going. Like,
I'm that guy, by the way. So you know. So and you know this already. You've done enough shows and things with me. I am that guy. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there 10, 30, 40, 11, right? I'll get there eventually. I'm always there. I'm always on time.
There's definitely trigger words that people say that I instantly know are like, yeah, this is not a better late than never. You're at never.
Well, today's show is an amazing that we're doing it because I'm super happy to be here. We got an interesting show today, Dustin, and I'm excited to have you on here, and I'm excited to have our guests. We'll bring in just 1 second, Gibbie Dowdy from Illicit Glass, producers, sellers, some of the best American glass you're going to find in the industry. Check them out, illicitglass.com. We'll put some links in the comments below. You know, Dustin, we have a lot of folks on this show. We've had some amazing guests the past, we're at 110 episodes now that we've done. We've had a lot of amazing conversations, you know, all because cannabis. It's in the title, right? Like these type of things. And one of the, I guess, the through points or the commonalities that we talk about a lot is this need for consumption, right? Are you self-medicating? If you're not medicating, is cannabis a therapeutic? Is it a cure? You know, why? It's a very simple question, maybe, I suppose. Why do you use cannabis? And it's an interesting question that I think people struggle to answer sometimes. Most people, and if we're being super honest with ourselves, if we're keeping it real, if we're checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves, most people use cannabis to get high, right? They want to feel good. We know this, right? What do people drink? It's a self-medication of sorts. There are some things going on, and it's amazing that the plant has less harmful side effects. But it's an interesting question. Do you reflect sometimes, Dustin? Is it pretentious to reflect on why you use cannabis? Is it important? When I ask you that question, and we'll get to why you use, we'll bring Gibbie in a second to talk about why, but just think about that question. Is it the right question to ask, or maybe is there other better questions we should ask than why do you use cannabis? And maybe there's semantics in the word, maybe not.
Holy shit, am I tongue-tied? Okay, to be honest, I think that with the amount of stigmatization around the use of cannabis, sometimes that why needs to be brought out of the holster a lot sooner and with a lot more passionate response and just to overcome some of that stigma right off the bat. And then, you know, I think the alternative of whatever they were medicating with prior to cannabis it usually is a lot worse. And so when you start,
great way to put it, by the way, there's a lot of people self-medicating. They're doing things, whether it's drugs, maybe they're gambling, like they're doing something to fire up those dopamine receptors and to take them away like Calgon from whatever is ailing them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's pain or they want an enhancement to the moment. But in the end, there are many, many things you can do to feel these sensations, from legal to illegal, from, you know, but cannabis, even opposed to things like sugar and such, probably has healthier, or let's say the least or a less amount of negative side effects, if we're keeping it vague, than a lot of those things, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's yes. I think that's absolutely the case in a lot of cases. And we're not gonna. I think that's also too fanboy in some way, where we're like, cannabis works for fucking everybody. I don't. Again, you and I both know that there's a lot of that's bullshit, and that for the people that cannabis is right for, it can do incredible things. And so I think that's the real strength of it.
Well, let's ask our guest. Bring him in right now. Gibbie Dowdy at Licit Glass. Gibbie, is cannabis for everyone, or is it just for everyone that smokes it out of an amazing glass from licitglass.com?
It's for a lot more people than I originally thought it was for. That's for sure. You know, when I started selling glass, it was some of the older people. You know, I always thought it was for younger generations. Like it was, you know, the young kids, 18, 19, 20, 21 to 20, 5 age. And I found that it's more of like the 30 to 40 to 50 to 60-year-olds that are consuming, because they are self-medicating, like you said, and I know that I've self-medicated and actually quit one time in the summer and then realized that I was self-medicating. After 2 weeks, I had started having the back of my head started itching and it started hurting because I had a head trauma it had been 2.5 years, but I had been smoking so often that it didn't hurt. And then all of a sudden, after I just decided one summer, I was like, I'll quit for a month or so, and it didn't really have an agenda to it. And about 2 weeks in, it just started itching. About 3 weeks, it started hurting, and then I smoked 1 or 2 times, and it went back to like not hurting anymore. So I just kind of knew. And then a couple years later, I had actually did the same thing. So now you're talking 4 and 5 years later, and I quit smoking again, and about 2 weeks in, and it started itching. And I was like, well, I know what to do to fix that.
I know what to do. And so let me get to this, Dustin. The reason we ask, or the reason I ask, and the reason we brought Gibbie on here, and the reason I ask you, Dustin Kava, I've got to know you very well over the last decade that I've known you. We've talked a lot about a lot of things that have happened and a lot of events that have defined you, some negatively, some positively, some events you're working to figure out, and why cannabis, why use cannabis, because of cannabis, all those things have brought you, I think, comfort in a part of it. You very much advocate for patient rights. And I think coping, maybe it's one of the number one things people use cannabis for. And there's been some recent events and some recent news about things that are an important part of you. And we thought, Dustin and I got together and thought it would be important to share a bigger depth of the story now that more people are finding out. And Gibbie has, as a long time friend of Dustin, intimate knowledge as well in this information. So Dustin, I'm going to turn to you for a bit to talk about, what we're talking about today, why it relates to cannabis, as this was a very important thing, the plant that helped you go through some things. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I think cannabis, in so many ways, cannabis has given me the ability to step back a little bit and reflect more long term, if that makes sense. The consistency of being able to use the plant and use that in coalition with like actually processing certain events that have happened to me in my past. There is something to that consistency that I'm not sure I would have ever gotten had I be partaking in any other thing. And I think that because of that, patients' rights, the advocacy of listening to others when they're trying to describe what is happening to them in their day-to-day. I can't go to the grocery store because of this. I can't, like get up out of bed because of this pain. I can't. And, in a lot of cases, and certainly my case, cannabis helps quiet some of those outside external things. And so, for me, I'm extremely grateful that I was able to find the tool when I had, because I think I'm in a better place today because of it,
Did you feel that same way, Gibbie?
I 100% feel that, I'm in a better place because of cannabis, but it's also been a journey. I had to develop, a relationship with it. Because you can over consume, or you can consume, product that isn't the greatest for you. I mean, if you have consume something with mold in it, it's going to give you a terrible effect. Or if you're consuming something with, moldy water in it, because I know a lot of people don't clean their glass. I mean, there's a lot of things in the cannabis relationship that, you have to work on to keep a positive relationship with it. But I, 100%, have told the difference. My stepdad, when growing up, like I was, not accepted because of what I make pipes. I've been doing it for a long time. And then there was a time where, my stepdad had colitis, and for 2.5 years, he couldn't go more than 10 minutes from a bathroom. I mean, the man literally bought an RV so he could drive around so that he could pull on the side of the road and take a poop, and then he tried every medicine that the doctors gave him, tried everything. And then he saw some, ad about somebody using cannabis to, help with the colitis. And he called me up one day, and, we were pretty estranged. Like, we didn't have a great relationship. And he was like, I think I need to try this. I've tried everything. I need to improve my quality of life. And he smoked. And then it was like, he said the next day, it was literally, he smoked one night, and then the next day he was better. Like, It was instantaneous. It changed his life. And then our relationship, my parents and, my whole family, became more accepting of it. My grandma had always kind of, been a little bit more accepting of it. My mom and stepdad, were always like, follow the rules. My dad back in the 70s was arrested with 25 pounds or something. So, it's kind of in the family to, follow that. But for me, it's not just the physical, it's like the mental. Like, I had some stuff happen in the military, and it brought it up. Like, actually, me and Dustin, we started this conversation because a documentary just came out about some of Dustin's experiences that we've talked about. Me and Dustin have talked on the phone for hours, for years and years, about some of his experience and some of my experiences. And then I was able to kind of relate some of my experiences in the military with what he went through, and, but it's on a much more traumatic scale, and actually seeing the documentary come out now is like, man, I've heard Dustin's tales of, way it went down. And so, playing that game of telephone after years of something happening, the slightest details and stuff, like you always kind of wish you had a platform to express like your experience, so that everybody, could get it out. Cause I think that's the biggest thing for these documentaries and stuff coming out, is everybody being able to come together and get experiences and know that there's other people still making it. And I know for, Dustin, what's the actual title of the documentary?
Well, it was funny, and let's bring up the trailer for a second, Dustin. I had like a Leonardo DiCaprio like meme recently, because there's two documentaries I've seen saw trailers for recently. One was A Quiet on the Set, which is about the Nickelodeon days, and actor Drake Bell coming out and talking about what one of his, dialogue or something coaches and the abuse he suffered. And then I saw a trailer for what you have up right now, this one, The Program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping, which is available right now on Netflix. I saw the trailer and I heard the mention of the place, and I was like, is that the thing? Is that the one? And I was, when I mentioned it to you, it was, that. And then so having that out there, let's just start there. Before we play the trailer, Dustin, how does it feel? I think about this a lot sometimes. I listen to these true
This is
crime
my
podcasts.
problem with cannabis. This is why, because for me, what you're about to see was actually caused because of cannabis. Like, one of the reasons and one of the big things of why this even happened to me in the fucking first place is because I smoked cannabis. Because, because when they found me smoking cannabis, there was a lot of cannabis around me, and so the fear as a parent, the fear as someone who's trying to guide you in the right direction. And, like, all of us here have children. And so we know what we really we envision our children to be someone when they're born, and then they consistently surprise us and show us that they are their absolute own individual. And you are still meant trying to guide them in a way that hasn't been shown to you yet. You don't know what they're going to be. You don't know why they're going to be it or what they're going to love. But as it more gets presented to you, you keep pushing them in the directions and steering them away from certain obstacles and, trying to be hyper aware of it. And in my case, being hyper aware as a parent of the amount of consumption of cannabis and the amount that there was clearly indicated that there was probably some shaking of hands and money exchanges going on at young age, at 16, 17 years old. And that's a scary thought to say, hey, where the fuck is my kid getting stuff like this in the first place? Who is he dealing with? How? It's a terrifying thing. And so, that's a really funny thing is now I use cannabis to help heal the side that was caused from using fucking cannabis. And that is, it's fucking a mind fuck. That's
a mind blown emoji.
That's super interesting. So I'll bring up this.
Bring up the chair as he's going. So as Dustin's doing this, Gibbie, it's for you and kind of same question for Dustin. Dustin, when you see things like this, or Gibbie, when you see things in the military that are on an entertainment scale that are resembling some of the moments that affected you. And I think about this, Dustin, I was telling you about, I listen to true crime podcasts and they're interesting, but then I think about all the folks that lived in the moment that are like, my God, can you just shut the door? And so do you before we get ready to play the trailer here for the programs, Cons, Cults, and Kidnappings now on Netflix, do you like the Band-Aid and open and the sun sign like to kill the vampires? Or do you like the darkness? Like which one? I feel like sometimes being dark helps it. Is it which one do you think helps it heal? Does it affect you when you see it? Balance.
You gotta have both. I mean, because coming out and sharing can be traumatic, but sometimes you're not ready to share. So that's one of those things where like sometimes you can't share so you can heal, and then you have to share so that you can heal. And I think it's a little bit of both.
All right, Dustin, let's play this trailer and then let's talk about it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I also think that people don't. Trauma's a real fucked up thing. And so and what people don't understand is taking your accuser to court is reliving the trauma over and over, writing a book about it to somehow get off your chest, or, taking part in something like, say, Courage and Cannabis, the things that I've, intimately helped. There, you can see that trauma, that when you're constantly having to have the discussion, constantly having to fight for the right to say what you're about to say or to do what you're about to do, it's like the wound never, it's hard to truly feel like the wound heals and that you are putting it past you when it is such a heavy present, thing. And so, for something like me, I don't know, again, Gibbie, it's been a while. It's been 20 years since you've been out of the military. For me, it's been almost 20 years since I've been out of this fucking place, and so a lot has happened in that time frame of life. And so this coming up now, things with the military, finally validating certain things, like if coming up now still doesn't, you're sometimes right back in that moment again. You're sometimes after 20 years of healing, right back in the scenario. And so that's the funky thing about fucking trauma and false bravado about being healed and completely over something and completely forgiving someone with something, or it's like, fucking A, man, it doesn't mean you still can't be hurt. It's forgetting the forgiveness. And it can easily happen again. You can easily forget that you fucking forgave the scenario, the person.
Yeah.
So I'll bring up this trailer. I'll just fucking play it.
We'll trail it and let's play it and then we'll talk. Kidnapping, available now on Netflix. Take us. There you go, Dustin. Thank you. So let's talk then, Dustin. Why this trailer? Why this trailer hit you so hard?
What's really, dude, it's actually fucked up because I didn't have sound on it. You guys heard sound. I didn't.
I hope the audience heard sound. I had sound. Give it I did have sound through the whole thing. So I assume if not, it's on Netflix. It's on YouTube.
No, it's not even that. It's just watching it without sound is making my hair fucking stand up. It's getting it's like, I don't know where to begin with it, but I will say that like it's fucking easy to be taken back. I mean, there are still things today. I was there for 11 months.
Well, let's start with that. Like, I think I think we've talked about it, but get the straight out facts. You were at Ivy Ridge during this experience.
Yes, between like 2004 and the end of 2005. I was there about 11 months, and so
one of the 6 people arrested. There were 6 people arrested in the documentary at Ivy Ridge. You were one of them. 6 people, right?
I was one of the 6 people, but a lot of this is like, you have to take it from the beginning and say like there were problems in the family. The family was looking for a way to guide me, like, again, you're a parent who don't really know what to do. You feel like you're pulling your hair out and nothing's changing, and you keep guiding and they just blatantly fucking go the opposite way because they're a teenager, and so you're in this mode where you are absolutely searching for an answer, and you really hope that the answer could be something very simple. And so when you are in that state of desperation, it's very easy to look at marketing and other things and hear stories from people and start believing that maybe it's the answer for your own kid. And again, you're just desperate to help them. That's all you want, And so that is my family. My family, when you hear when you think about what I'm about to tell you, or to explain some of the scenario of what has happened to me, you will go instantly to, why the fuck would anybody send their children here? You instantly downplay the parent as if they are fucking wrong in some capacity, that they are, it's the fact that they couldn't handle it, the fact that they just weren't strong enough, the fact of how could they be so oblivious to what could possibly happen? How can all of these scenarios are the constant questions that come up in this. And at the end of the day, that is, you just can't understand the power of collective voice when you are being told certain things. There is a reason why cults can happen. There are a reason why preachers have the power that they do, that when you are in a position of power and you are able to absolutely control every ounce of the story be given to anybody that surrounds you, there is an immense position of power to take advantage of even the smartest fucking people in the world, And so there are parents that were chemical engineers. There are parents who ran multi-million-dollar companies, and fucking senators, fucking judges' kids, the whole gamut of intelligence and fluidity throughout a country still made the same fucking mistake. And so in my case, again, there were problems at home. Family was looking for an answer out in some capacity of guidance of some kind. And this place was presented as an opportunity for them. And so I remember the day. They say cons, cults, and kidnapping for a reason, because programs like this is part of a large ring of programs. This association, it was called the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, and they ran and operated tens of 20s of facilities all around the country, and so in order to get kids from one place to the other, in many cases, it starts with the forced extraction out of their environment and then sent to a facility that is locked down. So in my case, they knew that I wouldn't be compliant if I fucking knew even roughly about this place. I liked my high school. I liked my friends. Just because I was smoking weed to self-medicate on other things that happened in the past does not necessarily mean that like I need some radical transformation, that I need some fucking whatever the hell. And so they, there never was going to be a time where I would have just walked into these doors myself. And again, some kids were lied to and they came there on their own accord and went. But in my case, it started with extraction. And so I remember my mom picking me up from a a building and driving me down to the end of a cul-de-sac, which is now a jail and so much like it. When I drive on this cul-de-sac and just like visit it, sometimes it's like fucking A, like I'm sitting here, you're just taken immediately back. But I remember sitting there, my mom's like, we're just going to park here and have a conversation, talk about what's going on at the house. What is happening with us? Why do we solve things? And she parks, and next thing I know, a motherfucking car flies up to the end of the cul-de-sac, skids next to me. The guy, a huge 7-foot tall Jamaican dude, and like a 5-foot tall Italian guy get out. They flash me a badge. They say, you are now in custody of us. We're taking you away. Not where you're going, not what you're going, not who the fuck they are, not what they represent, not not why, just you are now in custody of us. Handcuffed, with behind my back, put in a car.
I mean, that has to be in that moment, like instantaneously terrifying. I mean, you're what?
You have no fucking, again, when you don't have control, when you don't know where, you don't know why, there's no accountability to a situation like that you are able to be accountable to. I wasn't sentenced to this, which some kids were, which we can talk about later, just the amount of brevity that these fucking assholes had when they were setting up these corporations and how they established their base of students. But again, I'm taken into the fucking handcuffs, driven straight to fucking the airport. The airport, our airport in Cleveland, and I am walked through the airport in handcuffs. Now, remind you, I have not had any charges placed against me. I was not fucking, I was not a criminal. I was not convicted of any fucking crimes. I was not fucking, in any way, but I'm walked through an airport like I'm fucking most wanted fucking guy, sat on the plane with the guard sitting next to me on either side at all times and flown. And again, the only way I know where the fuck I'm going is by looking at the airplane board and seeing New York, And so you're like, okay, well, that's at least where I'm going. I don't know where in New York. I don't know what the fuck any of this is. They refuse. They're not allowed to tell you anything. It just continues to increase the run risk that you are, as if you're going to run away in handcuffs and somehow get from fucking Jersey to, Cincinnati. It's like, no, you're fucking incomplete. And you're 14, 16, 17 years old. So I get off the airport, get off the plane with these guys. And now I have a 2.5 hour drive to a very rural part of New York called Ogdensburg, New York. The city lies in the St. Lawrence County of New York, which is on the border of fucking Canada. Like the St. Lawrence River's there. You can see Canada from the building that I stayed at. It was like this fucking thing of freedom that if you were able to look out the window and you saw Canada, you were like, there's fucking hope somehow. What if I could get across this massive raging river and somehow get to Canada? Could you leave? Could you get the fuck out of this place?
They should have used that as some tourism. Escape here.
And the idea here is threefold. One, these programs exist all around the country. Even some famous names, Paris Hilton was sent to a program just like this, and to this day fights to get the knowledge out about this existence within this country. So there are these documentary had just come out. But
stop there. I mean, so once you're in there, you are then cut off from your family. You have until you've reached the second level, you have no contact with your family. And you talk about looking out the window to see Canada. In the documentary, they're saying that if you looked out the window,
that's what I said is if you were able to look out the window. Here's the reality.
But even if you were able to, if you did look out the window, you got in trouble.
Yes. Well, and then let's break down. If you want the reality of what a scenario like is from the very first second you walk in the door, those guys 20 minutes before we landed at the school, they were like, you're going to a boarding school. And in my mind, I'm like, a boarding school? Why the fuck am I handcuffs to be in it? Like, I picture American Pie fucking boarding school.
Yeah, you need a nice blazer.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But no, this is a behavior modification center. And so I was I was 16, I think. So I was there about 11. I was a little bit behind actually 17 years old. So I was there 11 months and shit happened like a month before I turned 18 and I got the fuck out of there. But 11 months feels like 4.5 fucking years in there. When you're in complete isolation in every sense of all of the word, and every action, every movement, every eye much, every mouth of the movement of the mouth, every, sniffing of the fingers on the nose, or, like brushing your hair, every single action is controlled in its entirety. It's 4 years of your life. It's monumental more. So the very first second I walk into these doors and the handcuffs, the doors slam behind me and you hear that lock. Now they handcuff me and they say, come with us. So, and at this time I'm 17, I have a fucking beard that's like 2 inches long. I have longer hair, they take me upstairs to the dorm rooms, make me strip. And again, I got 2 adult males just staring at me as I strip completely naked because they need to search you for any contraband, as if sitting in the car with my mom, I was going to shove a fucking packet of coke up my ass or something, like as if I was ever going to have something on me when you are taking them at such opportunistic times. They're sleeping, they're fucking, they're in a car, they're trapped in a fucking school, whatever the fuck it is. So they make me take a fucking 1-bladed Bic razor with no shaving cream and shave every ounce of hair off my head and my face. 1 blade. Like, dude, I was so fucking bloody by the end of it from nicking myself and having to peel off the 2-inch hairs out of the 1-bladed razor. And that's just fucking day one. Then they throw you clothes. And at this point, this is like, maybe it was later in the evening, so it wasn't dark yet. But by the time all this shit went through in the intake, it was time to sleep. And my first experience getting my first night of sleep at this facility was to sleep on a mattress in the middle of the hallway where there's 2 guards on either side of the hallway that watch you all night. The lights are on in the hallway. There's no doors on any of the dorm rooms, so there's no privacy ever. There's really no privacy in the bathrooms. It was the first introduction to what life is like when there is no privacy and you truly can't say, do, or anything.
Yeah.
And so,
let's do this for a second. Let's just recap real quick to make sure where we're at. I want to make sure the audience is following us here. So we are talking about a new documentary on Netflix, The Program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. And so what this documentary is, we would definitely recommend that you would go to Netflix and watch it. It's not anything to do like we're part of, but Dustin clearly, as you're learning, intimately involved with the story. Gibbie Dowdy from Licit Glass, our guest. So the documentary follows a former student, Catherine, as she goes back to the school and is looking into some of the things that Dustin is talking about and some of the things we're going to reveal here. And as he talks about his story, these allegations of abuse. So it was listed, it's kind of sold to these parents as a disciplinary kind of board school. And what it turned out to be was basically a prison-like environment where you have terrible, terrible allegations. And then as obviously the documentary, just the snippets that we saw were hard to watch in the trailer of abuse. They had systems for children where they would deprive them of sleep and food. They had these point systems, they had all these really corporal punishment and hardcore torture devices, things, that you would think of as military type things. So this documentary debuted in Dustin, as we're learning and is talking about and sharing his version of what his day one at the Ivy Ridge Academy kind of was like in the New York facility, as the trailer talks about. So
I want to play you something else. Here's a promotional video for the boarding school of the future. You guys have time?
I do, yes. Hold on a second. This is the advertisement for the place that we just saw in the trailer?
This is one of many, yes.
First of all,
I didn't want you to
off of YouTube for the copyright.
Oh yeah,
that's all I need.
Surprised that they hadn't gotten a copyright yet. So let me actually mute this shit and
let's mute it. I'm a little worried about the music.
So let's talk
anyway.
About
this is like this beautiful, what you would look like as a typical, when is this, 16 years ago? So you're looking at an early thousands kind of college advertisement video, students and happy things, the sunshine, the lake, the Colorado or the New York snow in the bottom left corner there. They're painting this gorgeous picture of what you described, a blazers and slacks and plaid dress type, a happy boarding school environment.
Exactly. And then these programs are all over the country. And so when they say, look at our beautiful facility at Casa by the Sea in Mexico, or Jamaica, or some wilderness program in Utah or Montana, or it's not hard to fill the torture and the trauma with scenic nature bits of like it, or even like, it's funny.
They would give them 1 day a year to go outside and then
That's where you shoot the video.
Yeah.
That's where you shoot the promotional videos. And you were only allowed really outside if you made these upper levels. And you got to remember, like, the whole point of this is to modify your behavior, and it's done systematically. And so, when I say like, what are the processes? If you went to Google, and we'll just do it now, what are the processes of indoctrination? It's going to say something like softening up stage, compliance stage, internalization stage, and consolidation stages. And there is a lot of that type of thing where they are able to, the whole point of it is to indoctrinate your parents into keeping you there, because it's a very expensive place, between $5,000 and $10,000. And then 2, find a way to indoctrinate you so that you can keep yourself in this place. So it's just like a cult saying, come be with us. And then you are so great. You are so great. Or you would die without this place. Or you would, thank God your parents sent you here because now you're alive. You would have been dead. Give it 2 weeks. Someone would have killed you out there in the today. You're saved today. And then, to force you through abuse, to write home to your parents and say, thank you so much for sending me to this place. Oh, by the way, this is everything I've ever done wrong, and then these parents get notifications or these letters saying, wow, look at this. My son's admitting to this. My son's admitting to that. Like, this school is just bringing out the honesty and it's just.
But let's stop right there. A lot of that honesty was lies.
And that's
the thing. Is like, you've had instances, and that's what touched me about the military too, is like, so this school, was sending out false drug reports to parents. So they're like, this kid was coming in, not being a drug user, and then taking a drug test, and they were saying that the kid was failing the drug test, and then sending it out to the parents and saying, look, this kid, did this, this, and this. And that's the same thing the military did to me. They gave me a drug test and said it tested positive for everything: THC, smokeless tobacco, methamphetamine. It had TNT in it. It had every drug that MDMA. If you look down the chart, every single thing on the chart said it was in there, and it was something that they had given me out of the dispensary from where I got wisdom teeth pulled out. In a licensed bottle is hydrocodones, and they said they tested the hydrocodones and tested positive for every drug known to mankind. And so they sent that to my parents. So I can imagine these kids going through the same thing. And like, my parents didn't believe me I'm out of the military now, and I'm living another life. I've got kids, and like, I get a letter in the mail, and get validation. They're like, oh yeah, we realize we fucked you here. We're sorry. We were able to give you benefits because we realized how bad this was. And I can imagine how these kids feel now, like, when they're going out here and they're going back to this school that is now shut down, and they're going through their records and they're finding their drug tests that were negative, and they had their parents being said they had positive, like, it's in their file. They kept it in their file, a negative drug test, and then sent out the positive one out to their parents. And like, and that's going through that experience. You're like, well, years and years of people just not believing you. And so like, this documentary comes out, and like, people, you've told me the story for years, Dustin. And like, I try to empathize with you on a lot of the things and the details, but actually seeing it in a documentary, it gives me a little bit more. But then you have like the father perspective of it, of like how much brainwashing then goes through to keep these parents in that. And like, I now worked on my relationship with my parents, because it was like, look, they had this information to go off of. They had the military telling them that I was a drug user. You had they had other students at this school telling them, like, they said that, you would literally have to admit to things that you didn't do, so they would start believing you that you were recovering.
Well, and
Because if you denied it, you weren't doing anything.
Exactly. If you sat there and said, I'd never done a drug in my life for 4 months, they're going to say you aren't working the program. And you got to remember, like day one, it's structure of rules. And there was a lot of them. You're not allowed to look out a window. You're not allowed to talk ever. The only time we were allowed to talk throughout an entire week was 1 hour a week when we were writing our families home. And if you were writing your family home to get a letter back, because that's your only communication, then you are not allowed to talk. So it's either write home or don't talk. Or, or talk to your friends, or finally have a conversation after an entire week, 24 hours a day, not being allowed to open your mouth at all. And so, it's this idea of not only are you're controlling these kids in a way that every letter that's sent out is gone through. If you say something like, I just watched a kid get his face beaten in today, somehow that letter never got to your parents. Somehow they didn't decide to write back on it. Somehow they thought that you were manipulating them and they were told that you were lying just to get out of this place, just because of the massive amount of routine change that it is. And so, again, you're not allowed to look out the window. You're not allowed to talk. You're walking in complete structure. The only books you're really allowed to have were curated books, and mostly certain religious books. All your schooling was done online, when it's unfathomable how much of your day-to-day fucking life was actually able to be scrutinized. And so when you not only give an insurmountable amount of rules, but then create an arbitrary system that calculates the points that you get during a day of not breaking these rules, and setting almost insurmountable goals of, say, if you were given 60 points a day by the program, which is something like what it was, right?
Wait, so they had a point system?
System. Yeah. So you got 60 points a day. Okay. And at the same point, say if you got to 1,000 points, you were allowed to get to the next level. And then say you got to
15, like Scientology? Like, yes. You get to grab.
Say you get to the next fucking set of points, you're now allowed to be entered into certain seminars to possibly be able to get to the point where you can have a phone call with your parents once a month that's supervised, that's listened to at every point. Now talk, as you keep manipulating your way down, the higher levels you go, the more freedom you get, but also the more entrapment you get to have to pursue and embody the whole program, and thus indoctrinate others with it. So if you can imagine, being an upper level meant you had to facilitate some of the "this is great for you" mentality on your peers. You had to cater to a lot of lies that you were told to, just to work your program and personify this person, all for the most genuinely basic liberties: going to the bathroom with the door shut, having a phone call with a family member, a parent, and that parent had to be working the program to have the phone call with them. So they were either indoctrinated or they weren't talking to you, And so you have this arbitrary point system, 60 points a day. Now imagine there's 200 rules that you can break at any given moment, at any time of the day that you are awake. Whether that's looking down, looking at a wall, looking out a window, picking up a pencil wrong, holding a cup wrong, putting your plate down wrong, having your tie slightly disheveled, having a pair of shoelace unfucking tied, having, the fact that you didn't walk straight enough, that you didn't walk close enough to a wall, that you didn't do a 90-degree turn in a such and such way, that you...
I mean, it sounds almost farcical, the amount of rules that were there. And obviously there's zero expectation that anyone could...
Well, it's not even, it's meant to keep the kids there. So the point system, the whole point of the program is they harp on completion of the program. You have to complete this to get done. So if the kids have all these rules and they keep falling, they get to 20 points and go back, their parents have to keep paying money. So, it's a cycle. Like, they're meant, and so they have incentives for the people that, what do they call them? The parents, the family parent.
Yeah.
So the family parent had incentives to write the kids up to keep them in the program. So and I can imagine, because I was in the military, and when I went to jail, they took me, and then they were like, you either admit to doing something you didn't do, or you're in here for an indefinite amount of time. And so these kids are in the same situation of we have to admit to something we have to do, or have to do this, or we're in here for an indefinite amount of time, because you don't even get access to tell your parents that it's this bad until you apply.
And some kids were court ordered to complete the program. Court ordered. They could be there 7 years to complete the fucking program. And every year a state can even be paying the amount of money's tuition. And so the incentive to modify that kid to get them to complete a program is not very high when you're collecting $5,000 a month off of him for 7 years, you know? And so what is that incentive? What is, you know, again, it's set up in a way that just perpetuates the control, perpetuates the money continuously coming in. And then there's always subverse, you know, like when it's, to me, I don't know how to say this. This is what scares me, you know, because again, I know what it's like to be isolated in a scenario like that. It happened to me for 11 months. It's the fact that how easy it is for a person in a position of power to make some of these decisions over anybody. And we do it with, it's not just troubled teen programs. It's not just military. It's the way we define allowing corporations to manage our lives in terms of, even in my off time, I shouldn't be doing something, or I have to present myself in a certain way at all times of speaking, or there's this constant bombardment from those in a position of power to absolutely critique and modify and control all of us. And so I think, to me, it's important to actually say this is happening to everybody, and this types of programs are also happening all over the country in general. But you're not alone in this, BC. Having to work in corporate America or corporate cannabis, there are fucking things you just cannot talk about. There are things that, should anybody hear someone talking about it, could be very detrimental to their career, detrimental to whatever the fuck. And so, you know,
do you think about that? Like, do you worry that, like, right now we're sitting here, and you know, Gibbie, same for you. Like, you both have public brands. We have this show, Dustin. You have other things. You're looking to work with other companies. We do work within the cannabis company. We often talk, Dustin, you and I, like, does the fact that we do this, just this podcast in general, we're a little silly, we have these folks on, does this discredit us? Do people click on it and be like, bro, that guy could never do that? And Gibbie, you know, you're sitting there, I'm
a soccer coach. And so like,
but you have that same thing. Like, you're a youth soccer coach, right?
Constantly.
So are you worried when people associate, and Dustin, like, if they hear this story, or in Gibbie, let's be real, you're in more of the southern part of the country, which is more pro-military. And so you have this negative experience with the military. That is sacrilege sometimes in some parts of the country. So how do you feel, or how comfortable are you, both of you? You're putting some stuff out there that people are going to know about. Is it make you nervous, or does it make you like, not happy, but proud to be like, hey, I want to share so other people don't feel? Like, how does that feel for you?
Now that cannabis is legal, and cannabis was the number one thing that helped me cope with a lot of the things that happened to me, it makes it easier for me, because now, like, I even went into making pipes, you know, because of like the connection that I had with cannabis, because of the experiences. So now, you know, it's kind of like full circle. Now the cannabis, I did this for 15 years or however long in an illegal market and couldn't talk about it. And I was coaching like on the side, and like I tried to just have a national brand and not really sell glass around where I live. Like I don't have one shop in my local county that I sell glass to, just because I don't want people to know. You know, I don't want people around me to associate me, you know, with that, just because of the negative connotation. Like, it's more important that I can have that positive impact on the kids without being judged by their parents of like, oh, he's a smoker and everything. But now that it's legal, I'm like, you know, well, I can talk up a little bit. I can do these podcasts, because now I'm just like the you know, you're going to tell a guy who owns a bar that he can't coach a soccer team? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you're not going to tell these other people that they can't do things because they smoke cannabis. And, you know, maybe like, I've gotten a lot further in my healing because of cannabis, and like being able to experience those things in the communication. Like, because what do we do with cannabis? We all get high and talk. Like, what is therapy? You fucking talk. Like, so me and Dustin, we've had so many of these conversations about all of this that we've talked about today and more, because we get high and talk about it. That's like our therapy is like, because of cannabis is like, we use each other and that's how we connect. And like, that's how we are okay with those thoughts that we, have to experience and get through. So,
and I feel like I'm sounding like a fucking madman trying to piece together certain things about this. It seems so scattered, but in my brain, it's all about
it's like a flood, I would imagine. Like it is.
And that's exactly it is, like, and what you were saying before absolutely coincides with it. And imagine, like in this facility, there was a time when all the school's done on the computer 12, 13 hours a day. And I'm a computer guy. And so was another one of the kids in there. And we found a way to, for the first time in the school's history, to get communication out to the outside, to actually break down their firewall, send it, a million packets at this size, to overload it, to shut it down, to stop the barrier to getting out onto the internet, to then get on into the internet and contact people. And you know what was said when I contacted parents of people who I really genuinely trusted, and other political and other people that were contacted. Can't say names, but the idea here is that people were told while I was in there, look at this fucking abuse. This shit is happening. It's fucking real. It's only 3 months that I've witnessed all this, and there are people in here for 2 fucking years already. This is bad. Send someone in to take a look at it. Just walk through for 1 fucking day, or tell my parents to just be mindful of it, and have those people say, nope, that is exactly what someone in a jail or troubled youth program or fucking whatever would say. You're a bad kid. Clearly you're so bad that you got sent there in the first place. Everything you say gets cut off after that point. The fact that you had what happened to you, Gibbie, in jail, right then and there, the military defined you to half of your family. And so, at that point, you can't even say anything against it, because it's so strong about the why. Why were you sent? Why did this happen to you? You really must have done something fucking wrong. And so it null and voids a lot of any victim's story. We do it with women, and they say, well, you shouldn't have worn something so scandalous. And it's all that type of bullshit that is like, you are blaming them and then superseding everything that happened afterwards because of that blame. And it's unacceptable in a lot of cases. But even it happened to me, and speaking about getting out onto the internet, that's a very dangerous thing to have happen for an institution like this, which prides itself on the absolute and totalitarian control over every aspect. That is like the most dangerous thing that could ever happen to a facility like that. And so from that point on, it was torturous for me. Once they knew this guy had the ability once to do it, it was, this guy is never allowed to go in and do schoolwork. When schoolwork is all done on a computer, we are not allowing him to even ever go near a computer. He's going to stay in a separate isolated room for 6 months because he knows about computers. And that alone, it kickstarted the trauma for me. It kickstarted the real, true physical abuse in a situation like this, because you are a threat. And a lot of these guys, a lot of these staff members and people in a position of power did not see these kids as a threat. They truly saw them as, like they could do anything they wanted to these children.
Well, there were some pretty horrific things shown in the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet. The program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. It talks about the Ivy Ridge Academy in New York. Dustin Kava, open it up. I mean, it's really powerful, sharing his experiences in that facility. The movie's available on Netflix. We're joined by Gibbie Dowdy as well with Licit Glass, licitglass.com, some of the best American glass in the country, talking about, it started with why we use cannabis, but sharing some of these stories. So Dustin, well, both of you, I mean, Dustin and then Gibbie, you have seen the movie as well. I have not seen it yet. We purposely did this so I could hear their stories, hear Dustin's stories raw, and then kind of see that. You watch the trailer and then you watch the film. Right? You've seen the film. Am I correct in that? So you've seen it.
Yeah, we both watched it the same night you came out.
So there are some terrible things showcased in the trailer that really are hard to watch.
And these are people that I fucking care about.
So again, how was it? Like, I mean, how was it like to watch it for both of you? Gibby, what was it like to
I
see
mean,
Dustin?
I heard a lot of Dustin's firsthand experiences. Like we've talked about the story, like we've mentioned before. So like the first episode, I was really putting myself in Dustin's shoes and like walking through the story and seeing like the details. And like that brought up a lot of things for me, when you hear a story that, it's the the details, the devil's in the details, right? For every individual, for everybody's experiences, like everybody's details are going to be different. So like you and hearing somebody else's details, it gives it perspective that helps you, but it's also difficult because you didn't have that same platform to, say the same thing. So like the first episode, I put myself in Dustin's shoes, and then the second episode, it brought up like for me so much stuff about the military, that I was kind of wrapped up in my own stuff during the second episode, and then the third episode was just filled of like anger of like knowing that there's things that aren't happening. Like, there's things that didn't happen in the military for me. There's things that didn't happen for these kids. And it's like when you have a big organization like this, you can't, it's who's going to take the blame? Who's going to take the fall? Because it's so big that you like, it's hard. You should just shut it down. And then like the guy who's all the money is being funneled to, apparently he's got so many shell corps that he's never going to see liability for any of this stuff.
Dude, here's the thing. And again, I sound like a broken record when you talk like this, because watching this, like every time we say something, certain things flash back. And, like it's very difficult to truly paint the picture as broad and huge as it really should be painted. And, like I remember when after everything happened, after the riot, after going to jail, after, like being sent to Ohio in order to not have a lot of these conversations for a very long time, I know what it was like to fight them in court, and, to see just how intricate the structure really was, and to see, I was part of I was part of a large lawsuit of many, many kids, so there's probably, I don't know, 100 or more people involved in the lawsuit, all from different programs from throughout the country. And to see the amount of abuse, just it listed in verbal form, I'm going to actually just repeat some of these allegations, of all the amounts of abuse that were able to happen at this facility. And then the fact that this is covered by over 400 shell companies that each do a certain portion of it, owned by possibly people in positions of power, people in every county in the country, people, just it's so diverse and so large that you just can't even fathom when you actually are trying to track and trace to someone to make a difference, to prevent something from happening to another again. It is extremely difficult. It's almost insurmountable. But here are some of the allegations of abuse from many of the people involved in the court case I was involved in. So I at least know that these are, there's a lot of allegations out there online. If you type in Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, WWASP, you will just see the plethora of survival testimonials talking about what they experienced in these situations. But these are just some of them. This is separated from their parents against their will without authority or judicial review, not permitted direct contact with parents, refusing to consider the views of the child in a matter of affecting the child, not allowing the freedom of expression by subjecting the children to arbitrary interference with their privacy, physical, mental violence, injury, abuse, neglect treatment, maltreatment, sexual abuse, failing to identify, report, investigate, or follow up instances of child mistreatment, failing to provide inadequate and special assistance to children with emotional and physical disabilities. That is most of these children going to this. They're going there because of some physical or mental disability or something, some emotional trait that is, should be looked into from highly trained personnel and really dived in a way that is safe to dive into some of these topics. Providing failing to provide nutritious food and clean drinking water. A failure to administer school and education in a manner that's consistent with the child's human dignity and in conformity with the conventional rights of the child, failing to assure education of the child at all. So like my diploma is not worth a fucking thing from this place. I had to leave the place and go get a GED just to have a solid piece of evidence that whatever the fuck I did was, valid to anywhere. We're talking, forcing children to lay in feces and urine. We're talking, the list just goes on and on. There's hundreds and hundreds of allegations of abuse. And these are from people in a position of power where you have no control, or will say, if you don't do this, you're staying here for a very long time. If you do not comply with my shit, whether I punch you in the face or sexually assault you or fucking keep something of importance of you or rip up family photos or whatever I can do to break you, there is no answer to it. There is no authoritarian person who is not doing this to you in this scenario. And thus you are absolutely voiceless. And that's just an unfathomable amount of, you are not only voiceless, but then imagine getting out of here, surviving these. And there are kids who fucking died in these places. There are kids who I knew who were so badly beat in Jamaica that they couldn't even they couldn't show a picture of their kid for months after being there because the kid was so fucking beaten. The federales raided the Mexican one because it was too strict. Like the Mexican government, where it's mass poverty, mass chaos, drug cartels everywhere, said, no, these kids are being incredibly abused, like beyond our standards. Casa by the Sea had rioted, which was in Costa Rica. For every program that existed, there was a program that rioted to stop it and that was moved to some other place. And every single one of them and every single victim that has ever been involved in this, for the most part, has not been able to successfully sue them or stop it in any capacity because of how many shell companies there are. Because to sue someone, you need to know the proper jurisdiction and the place to sue them in. If the shell companies are located in fucking 40 different states with 300 companies, what jurisdiction do you fucking file the suit in? And when someone makes the argument that, no, this isn't my jurisdiction, let's send it over to Utah, let's send it over to Arizona. It is an incredible amount of money to stick with it in any capacity to truly get to the bottom where you can prevent something from happening again. And that is one of the largest heartbreaks of scenarios like this. And the fact that they still go on to this day is that it's still happening. There still isn't. And in my case, if the creator of these programs was to somehow go to jail tomorrow, I just believe that someone else in the family, someone else who took part in establishing these corporations or setting them up all over the country, is just going to make their own. And it happens all the fucking time within this industry. And it's an industry ran by, yes, it just happens all the time. And so, I'm not sure that unless some larger federal things come through to truly regulate and check in on lying and to see where the money goes and just the whole gamut of how do we protect children in situations like this happens at a federal level, I'm not sure that it'll ever truly stop. And the truth is there's programs in, the Czech Republic, there's programs all over the world, South Africa, fucking, if it doesn't happen here, they'll just send you to fucking Jamaica. So just send you to Russia. They'll send you to fucking...
Right now it's big in Utah. I mean, Utah is one of
Yeah, well, it's a
no
$500
consent
million
states.
industry in Utah alone, but we're talking a multi-billion-dollar industry all over the world. And if you collect $5,000 or $10,000 from someone in Costa Rica, 10 grand US dollars for a student in Costa Rica, the cost of living is a hell of a lot cheaper. In a lot of these places, it's an exorbitant amount of money. It is unfathomable how bad these conditions can be and how much money can be collected from the victims in some way. You almost can't fathom the amount of lives ruined just by the money alone, or the separation that this will do inevitably with a family. How hard it is to overcome the trauma and still be a part of a family that that this happened in, or to listen when someone is telling you that an abuse happened. It's just.
So let me. I was thinking back about this. I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you after watching the documentary. So when you were arrested after the riot, what happened with that?
Well, man, because of the computer scenario, I was told I wasn't allowed to do school. So they kept me in, they show a room in the documentary of the room I sat in, the room that I was in all day, every day, which is like, a 6x6 fucking room. And at the door is a guy sitting in a chair, just staring at me. And I have to sit in structure all day while this motherfucker stares at me for fucking 12 hours, for 6 months, for a long time. And I remember getting a letter from my parents saying, and they were told to say this shit, like this is all part of the indoctrination of behind this stuff. And at the same time, they're going to seminars themselves, which are re-indoctrinating them every 6 weeks. They're going to a convention center and they're having all these things praised about what they're doing and why. And then when they leave the convention center, there's someone with a notepad trying to sign your kids up for another 3 months. You know what I mean? So I was told via a letter from my family, like, you're not doing school. Why? It's more like, did they not tell you that I'm not allowed on a fucking computer? That all the school is done on a computer, and so my family wrote me a letter saying, essentially, if I don't stay and complete at least the high school diploma from this school, right, then I will, if I leave, because at 18 years old, I'm now an adult. I'm now my own person. I can sign myself out of this facility. But the way they prevent that is by saying, if you come home without a diploma, whether it takes you to your 20 or not, however long it takes, if you come home without a diploma, you are not allowed to speak to anyone in the family. We will be filing, almost restraining orders or orders against you from ever contacting them again. And we will give you $40 and to buy your bus ticket to go wherever the fuck you're going to go. But that's all you're getting. You're getting $40 to leave rural fucking New York, right? Just walk out of a building. And then what? Just fucking, and somehow build a life, somehow come back and get an apartment and a job and have a place to go. It's a whole manner of things. And you will never talk to your family again. So I was told this, again, I'm not allowed to do school. So how the fuck am I going to get a diploma? Like, what the fuck am I going to do? And so one of the guards sitting in front of me all day, I remember one of the secondary guards walking up to him and being like, did you read the newspaper today? And he's like, no, what? He's like, you should see the article about Ivy Ridge. And they're fucking talking next to each other, And again, I'm just have to sit there pretending like I'm not listening to what they're fucking saying. And they're like, yeah, it turns out that, Ivy Ridge has been refused and denied indefinitely the accreditation for schooling. So no diploma's worth a fucking goddamn thing in this whole building, like that doesn't matter if I was to stay 2 years and get my diploma from this school. At that point, it's a worthless diploma as it is. So I'm in this position where it's like, what the fuck do I do? I can't stay here and complete a school that doesn't matter. And I can't fucking leave because at this point, like I'm never going to be able to talk to my family again. This abuse is still going to continue happening on and onward. And these kids are going to be trying to accomplish schooling that is null and void, So it was at those moments that it's time to truly do something about this facility. It's time to think about how you would ever get the word out, how you would ever actually riot, get out and prevent something like this from happening or make a difference. Because at this point, you know, I'm fucking beaten down. I've been abused for months and months on end. I've been isolated. I've been fucking tortured. The whole gamut of everything has been done upon you. I am, you know, like it's hard to still complete and keep a sense of self, you know, like it's hard to know who you were beforehand, before you walked in that door, or to feel confident about any of these things, you know? And so that's a lot of where the riot started. It's this idea of like something has to be done, and getting out onto the internet. And even there were some breakouts and people who were brought back temporarily and things that had happened that allowed people to get more of the lay of the land of the place. When I got on the internet, what do you think the first thing was? The thing I did? Not only did I write people and say, get me the fuck out of here, but the second thing I did was, where the fuck am I? How far is this? Where in New York am I? You're not on a phone call. I couldn't know who the president was. I couldn't watch TV, listen to a radio, hear music, read books. You are so isolated. Where the fuck are you? You know? So to being able to look up the Ivy Ridge area, you know, Ogdensburg, New York, and see, oh, this podunk town has a gas station fucking a quarter mile away. And then, you know, one church, and then 8 miles or 20 miles down the road is a mall. You know, to get the lay of the land is important, you know, and having the lay of the land, having this notion that no matter what I do, I'm fucked in this place. How do you stop it? You know, that's when everybody involved started saying a riot is the answer. We know other schools have rioted and they've shut them down, but what is it about the riot? It's not just that kids rioted, because riots can be squashed. It's what happens when the information about the riot gets out. What happens if a student was able to get out and actually talk to someone on the news before to tell.
Is that a conscious thought in the moment though? Are you thinking
that is the thought? Because what else are you going to do?
It's about the information,
that's
not about the act.
Kids escaped that night. It's not that they fucking just wanted to run. You were running into a very rural fucking part of the country. You barely have shoes. You don't have clothes. You don't really have fucking a whole manner of things to sustain yourself running out of a facility like that. So what are you doing? You're just going to run straight through the woods until what? Until fucking what? If you don't, and that's why it bothers me when people personify and glorify things like the riot. It's very purposeful. It's very strategic in the way that a riot is pointless for the amount of danger it is if there isn't really an end goal. And so, you know, the kids that got arrested with me, the kids who experienced, a lot of that goal was, how the fuck do we get to the gas station, to get to a payphone, to call the news, to get a story before we're captured, to then go back? How do you actually have someone who is willing to listen to the goddamn voice? And the night of the riot, and there are a lot of things that happened in the riot that they kind of touch on in the documentary, and I'm not going to spend too much because I'm not glorifying the riot. Riots are dangerous. Kids could get killed in a riot. Buildings can burn down in a fucking riot. Heart attacks can happen from staff members trying to gather in 250 fucking kids that are going ape shit. You know, there is a lot of inherent danger with rising up against the system and tearing down these walls for better youth. It's fucking dangerous. And in no way, shape, or form should it be personified as something that is inherently acceptable, because it's just not at its core. There's so much out of your control if you initiate, participate, engage in any of it. And so at that point, as a child, you don't understand those things, but you sure still at 17 years old understand that there needs to be a purpose with what we are doing. And so, you know, the night of the riot, we work through the notion, and I'm not going to go step by step and side by side because I'm not glorifying this, but when you finally get out of the building after planning, and actually I'm not even going to go into it. Getting back outside, the goal was to get the word out. And I remember running, and I remember every time that there was a chance one of us would get caught, someone would run back. They would sacrifice them fucking selves so the rest of the group can go. You have border patrol, state police, local police, all searching for you. There's hundreds of cops plus 60 staff members that are all larger than fucking linebackers. You know, like you have everybody looking at, and if you've been abused before, what do you fucking think is going to happen when you get back to this facility? You think you're just going to walk back in? Sorry, I burned the place down. You know, like, no, your ass is fucking toast. They will make sure that you will be uncomfortable for a very, very long time. And so I remember we ran and we fucking ran for hours that night. And finally getting to the gas station, it's like, you know, midnight or whatever the fuck. It's nighttime. You get to the gas station and the payphone that you saw on Google Maps is a payphone box with no payphone in it. What the fuck?
Destroyed by modern technology.
Exactly. And so, you know, there is this level of like, dude, you just can't imagine after all of the fighting that night, after finally getting the fuck out, your plan actually working and you're doing what you're supposed to do, getting to where you told everybody you were going to get to help them, you know, to then realize you're fucked. You are absolutely insurmountably fucked. And so I remember I was one of the last two to get fucking arrested that night and be brought back. And I remember walking back through those doors. All the kids had already been captured. Everybody has already been isolated and contained in the gym with fucking everybody surrounding them, guards everywhere, you know, and walking through that door from the cops with me to walk me back into school. They were giving me back to the school, you know, so they walked me through the door. And I remember the big head honcho, which won't be named, you know, walking up to me and being like, just this absolute evil in the eyes, you know, being like, get into my office, which had no cameras, you know, like you're going in my office and it's over from here. And the cops looked at me and I looked at them like, are you really going to leave me with these fucking psychopaths? I know I look crazy, disheveled, muddy, broken out, bad teenager. But are you honestly going to leave me in the hands of these people? And the cops looked at me and was like, actually, we're going to take them to jail.
What?
And fucking put me back in the car and drove me to jail. And then charged me with, felony riot and criminal mischief, assault, the whole gamut of things. And, you know, the way, again, I don't know any fucking better. A lot of the ways they were presenting things are like, you're fucked forever, dude. Again, you know, when the judges themselves were like, you have a riot charge, you know, like you're fucked. And not only that, but everybody in this town is employed by this school. It's the highest unemployment area of almost all of the East Coast at the time. 1/4, 1/3, 1/2 of the entire town worked for the school or had someone in their family that was getting their sustainable income from the facility. So you talk bad about a school, even in jail, you're fucked. You are talking about family members of guards. You are talking about cousins and brothers and sisters and wives and money. You're talking about your money. And so, but at the end of the day, jail was still a fucking cakewalk. It was the first time I watched TV, dude. It was the first time I fucking had like a damn good meal, like a really, really good meal. It's the first time that I honestly took a shit without someone watching me in 11 months. It's the first time I got to make a phone call to a family member. You know, it's the first time that it just was fucking awesome. As horrible as that sounds, and I'll never glorify jail in any way, but in that particular case, it felt like it felt more free than I had felt in almost all of a year. You know,
going from the military, going to jail, it was a lot easier in jail.
Yeah, and that makes sense because structure is structure, and jail has certain structure and routines, but when you're in your cell, no one's saying you need to stand there with your arms up, straight out, boots shined, you know, hair combed. They're just saying, get in your fucking cell from this time to this time. You know, do whatever the fuck you want in there within the rules, but just get in there, please. It's different in the military where you are in control. They own you. They own you in every way. Parents sign custody over to these places. They were the parent. When a parent is an institution, that's when there becomes problems with parenting. Like that is like, you can't do that. But yes, I mean, so there's parts of that, you know, it's going to jail. And then I remember, you know, like I didn't talk to, you know, I only talked to my mom, and, you know, she never said anything about anybody coming that I would ever, you know, there was no one to bail me out. There was no one that was, was really, if I got a court appointed attorney, I was fucked. Like, there's no attorney that is truly going to be able to fight this in the right capacity. And I remember it being like the last day before I really needed representation. Like I had been in there, you know, a week or two or however long. And I remember finally my dad coming in, which I hadn't talked to in months and months, being like, I found you an attorney, you know, and I'm not even going to say like, he knew the town. He's from the town. He knew all the people. He knew you know, and it wasn't until that attorney walked in and truly was able to then also have other students that were arrested be, you know, his, clients, and kind of bulk the case together to then go and say, I really don't think you want these kids talking. Like, I don't think you do. You should see these fucking statements and these allegations. Like you know, like what the fuck? And I remember, you know, I was dead. I was going to be in prison for so long. I was so fucked. He came in, and the next thing I knew, it was, shh, you're going back to Ohio. All things are dropped to minor misdemeanors. No one's going to fucking call you again. It's a probation that we might call you once every 6 months. Do not talk about this. Get back to Ohio. And I remember, you know, and then it just being squashed immediately, almost like we can't have this out, but we also can't have this kid having a charge that sticks that also makes this kid out. You know, it was a fucked up time. And even then the school operated for a while after that. It went from, you know, 250 students down to 75, maybe down to 50, and then inevitably shut down. So it caused the series chain of events to get those things to happen. But some kids were just sent to other programs still to this day.
Yeah, they had around 450 students kind of when this happened, but they operated for really another 4 years till 2009. This is around 2005. So 2009, when it became, that's when they shut down. That's when, ironically enough, kind of the Al Capone theory, first busted for issuing fake credentials. That was their first big notification, right? And then that spread to what is happening now, Dustin. So let's talk where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, and so even after that, we filed larger court cases, which I talked.
I was going to say, there's a lot of lawsuits now,
and none of them are successful. Very, very few of them are, specifically because of how intricate the setup of this association of programs are. When you have 300 shell companies, it's very hard to find who truly to point the finger at without having ambiguity there, or I didn't know that was happening. You can't put me in prison for 20 years when I didn't know. That corporation did, and then that corporation says this corporation knew it, and there's just no way to fight it. So the fact is that whether this association of programs is still around doesn't matter, because there are numerous more that have popped up. Hundreds upon hundreds of them are throughout this country. With WASP alone had 2,300 kids in their programs in 2003, about a year and a half before I showed up. So today, we're talking tens of thousands of kids are in programs like these, referred to as either military camps, wilderness camps, behavior modification centers, you know, emotional improvement, academies. The list goes on and on with how they label themselves. But at the end of the day, the same forms of indoctrination of the parents and the kids, the same massive amount of abuse, sometimes ending in death, happens still to this day. And we are nowhere near even remotely being able to fucking stop it. We're just not. It's as until a larger form comes above and finds a better way to stop it. But again, I'm not sure that it ever will, because the amount of money made in these facilities and how easy it is to start a shell company that you get cutbacks from is super easy. And whether that means,
evil is human nature, right? There are, no matter how
and
many
what
times
happens
we
when
spread
there's
light on any bad thing, it still exists. We can spread light on child trafficking. We can spread light on senior abuse in homes. It still is going to happen because everyone feels like I'm not going to get caught, right? I mean,
and what happens when the ones that are making the decisions to catch you are the ones who have investments within a program? What happens, and that's reality in a lot of cases with this. You got to remember there's thousands of schools. There are easily state congressmen, there are people in positions of power who have an interest in keeping you there. And what the fuck does that mean when it just doesn't go behind or above a CEO? What a CEO is nothing compared to the people who really have the say in why these things are continuing on. And if they're collecting $1,000 a month for each child they send there, I mean, there's a fucking bank to be made on turning a blind eye and saying, I'm actually helping these kids, these programs, and what these things are saying is absolutely right. There's no abuse. These kids are manipulative. These kids are horrible kids. And this is saving their life. I'm glad I'm an investor in this scenario. Like, I'm helping children, not hurting them, but I'm also collecting 10 grand a month. It's mind boggling in a lot of cases.
For me, one of the solaces that I have is like going through the experiences that I have has made me a stronger person because of, always what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, maybe, I don't know, sort of. I try to live by that. But how, what have you passed down of anything from this program to your kids? And like, is there anything that makes your life easier because you went through so much drama, trauma, and a riot?
Dude, I mean, it's so hard because I feel like I'm one of the lucky few. I got out and my fucking parents believed me. That in and of itself is such a rarity in these cases. My parents actually listened. They validated it. They fucking looked into it themselves. They saw the things I was saying and was like, holy shit. Now that I think back, I was in this way, like they did program me at these fucking seminars, and the verbiage that they use does fall in line with this form of indoctrination. And it's step by step what was done to me, and so that validation is where a ton of fucking healing was able to come in. And thank God I had that, because without that, it would have probably taken me 2, 3, 4 times longer to truly come to grips with something like this. And and even it's only recently to be able to get PTSD diagnosis on stuff like this and to have that be validated. I can't tell you how many doctors I would talk to about this, or therapists, and they would be like, nope, that's not PTSD. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm afraid to have the curtains on in my house anymore for fear that I'm just going to be taken away, that someone will know I'm in that building, my own home, which I own, and could just take me away. The ability to, when I smell certain water, you turn on a tap at a concert, I'm fucking taken right back to Ivy Ridge in that bathroom, hearing fucking line up, or are you done shitting? Are you done fucking, or watching a kid get his face smacked against the sink because he fucking brushed his teeth wrong to these people, it is entering into new scenario. The absolute understanding that I did contact people who were in a position of power and did absolutely nothing but call the facility and tell them that I got through onto the internet. That's a scary scenario.
That's the thing. After you were arrested. Yes. You were arrested, and there was all these statements, and then it went 4 more years, and they didn't get shut down because of the abuse allegations. Yeah. They got shut down because of a certification. So why did it take so long for them to get shut down for certification? And why was the abuse never,
And exactly 3 years after I knew they weren't accredited, the school was still issuing fake diplomas, still collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars from parents off their retirement. They used to rip my shirt pocket off my shirt and then charge my parents $200 for the shirt. He would come up once every 2 weeks and be like, hey, Dustin, looks like you fucking parents are going to buy another one. Sorry. It's when you are in that position. So it's that honest and true, not being angry, not being argumentative, but distrust of people in positions of power. And I have every right to question it. I have every right to say, are there other motives? Because it's possible there may be, regardless of what's being stated, and I apply that to everybody I work for, my own businesses in which I've started. It's the amount of, day-to-day things that still come up. I see a certain inspirational poster on a wall in a doctor's office, and I'm instantly taken back in the school because that's what was around all over. Inspirational posters of like, respect your family, or fucking,
They didn't make you hate the one with the cat hanging on the stick that says hang in there, did you? Because I love that one.
No, I wasn't
All
lucky
right, that's
enough
good.
to have that one. But so what I wanted to get with this is that I was the lucky few who actually had positive parents after this. Even I have every letter me and my mom
awesome.
wrote back and forth. We still talk every now and then about certain things. She feels devastated. Seeing her pain over the scenario has actually disproportionately harmed me just as much as the abuse that was done on to me. Seeing her say, oh man, I wish I never would have done that and had this happen to you, and never being able to take it back is like profoundly affecting. But again, I am not a victim.
Have they watched the film?
Not yet. And I don't know if I want my,
I was going to say, so there's that other part. They're a part of it. And we've talked a lot, about it, and you've had very open and honest feelings about their role and how we have this spot where they did come to believe you in part of it. But now, and by the way, it's 15 years after that happened. 15 years it took us to get to this spot. I mean, even during COVID, and everyone's making a documentary, thought that could have came out then. 15 years, she has the opportunity to visualize, right? You have told stories and painted pictures verbally for a very long time. Now she has this unfortunate, I guess, or maybe fortunate, I don't know, opportunity to watch.
I wouldn't call it
that.
Yes, it's horrible. I couldn't imagine her doing that, and I'm not sure.
Well, there's a part of it. I think about, Gibbie mentioned this earlier, in the part of a parent, and so I'm putting myself as I think about this a lot, right? I'm thinking about how I would feel in the roles before and after, and before I can't really control. So let's think about how I would handle it after, and I'd like to think I would believe. But part of me, if I'm being really honest, I have heard it. I would like to see, because I want to feel closer to my child. Like, I want to be that part of it. And that's me obviously putting my own opinion there. But I think there are parents who would feel that way, that there's a lot of pain there, but it's a pain that I feel if I can visualize with you, I can continue even now, 20 years later, to help you soften it. Right. Because now I have a deeper. So I mean, it's both. As a parent, I never want to know. It's like watching, like, if you end up and your child is murdered or something, and they have the video evidence now, and like, do you want to see it or not? Like, I think people want to, because you still want to know as much as you can about your children if you have deep care and passion and love for them.
I also think that, how to say this, I don't want any of these students to be classified as victims in the way that they're forced to own it. These are fucking awesome people. These are powerful warrior-like people who truly fought and went through something that is almost unfathomable that to the normal day-to-day lives of the majority of America. And because I say that, I say they are creatives. They are fucking intelligent. They are understanding and compassionate. They are, they fight for what's right. They see, adversity in a different light. They are so fucking strong. And if there is any ounce of positiveness that comes out, it's to those that can get over it. And there are many that will never be able to get over the abuse. It's just that fucking wrong and strong. But at the same plight, they're not just victims. They are fucking human beings. They are real life people in your community that deserve more than just that label. And I truly hope that of everything that gets brought about it's to define, if this happened to my kid, I would want him to be defined differently. I would want to be defined differently. I don't want people searching up my name and seeing that I was arrested for rioting. It doesn't help me in my life. It doesn't make me feel better, stronger, or successful, or it doesn't instill any of who I am today. And that's what I want to bring light on, is these are children. These are adults today that are so much more than just this period of their life. And to bring awareness in the stunted opportunities for growth that they had, but also if they can overcome this, just how fucking unbelievably strong and powerful and courageous that they will be for the rest of their lives, and to truly see them in that light. My mom doesn't look at me like the kid who rioted. My mom looks at me as the kid who stood up to adversity. My mom looks at me in a kid that will overcome and acclimate and anything that's fucking there. And she's watched me do it consistently from there on out ever since that day. Those are the things that are instilled in her. Those are the things that are instilled in myself. And that is what I want every one of these victims, which they are truly fucking victims in every sense of the word. These things that happen are just, but again, dude, not everybody even had these same experiences. I have to give light to also the 5% who say it was a good thing for them, because just like cannabis, it isn't all bad. It isn't all good. You know, there are pockets where you take good things from bad scenarios and you become a better person for it. I have a buddy who I just saw maybe a year and a half ago, and we talked about this stuff, and I could hear the words the same way they are today coming out in a very negative light about the facility, and him looking at me being like, Dustin, it changed my life, dude, for the better. You know, like who I became after I got out of there, and the whys and all of that, I don't want to, I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't fucking give it up for the world. And so, you know, like that is a powerful understanding too, that even in this massive machine of abuse, there are pockets of super strong individuals that are just unshakable, unbreakable to their fucking validation that life is good, that things are great, that you can be grateful for any scenario in any way that's happening. You can take it in stride and overcome fucking anything. And that is true power. That's what these kids fucking instill to this day. And it ain't stopping with this program. This program is bringing up trauma, but these are fucking strong individuals. These are individuals who I hope run schools in the future. I hope our senators and our fucking teachers and coaches on academic teams. And I hope that these are the people who we allow lead our own children, because I know that not one of them would ever make the same mistake, would ever make the mistake that their prior generation or their family or their parents or their court systems made against them, against any other person. They are the most compassionate people in the entire world. And because of that, this is a good thing. It's an incredibly powerful thing. And I fucking pray for each and every one of them, because I thought I was cool in a lot of ways. Bringing up, watching some of this shit, you can see that I talk in such a scatterbrained thing. Prior to this, for 10 years, I could talk to you straight about this topic. After seeing this fucking documentary and having 3 days, I feel like my brain is just jumbled. It's just
it's like you got a washing machine in there and it's just percolating. Like it's all together, and then when it comes out, it's good, but it's just.
And does that mean I don't
hard
forgive?
To keep track
I forgive these guys. I forgive the school administrators for doing what they did to me. I forgive my parents. I forgive, everybody that ever had wronged me in this scenario. And yet there's parts of me that are forgetting that I forgave them. That's hard. That makes me feel like there's a lot more work to still be done when it comes to processing things like this, or just trauma in general. You hear someone who has some real in-depth trauma and you're like, just smoke weed, bro. It's like, I want to be the guy to be like, this is what smoking weed while you have trauma with, this is, you're going to constantly be fighting this for quite a while. And if you do forget to forgive, that you forgive already, here's what that also felt like. And maybe you can get out of it a little bit quicker than the 3 days it's taken me to fucking go back through the process, and I don't know how long this will take in the end. But the program was very good in truly validating everything that I
Well, yeah, I mean, so let's talk what's next, right? So what's next? We got the movie, the series, the program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. If you want to learn more about Ivy Ridge, Catherine's story, learn more.
And all those people in that documentary, I mean, I watched them walk around. Sean is a very good friend of mine. Quentin is a very good friend of mine. These are people that I care about, who were in my family unit, that we walked around together in structure with, and that bond. I mean, we all of us students still talk to this day. fucking communicate. It is something that has internally bonded us in certain ways. And also to watch them become the people they are today is fucking awesome. I cannot wait to see them in 25 years when they really take a hold of fucking what they are, who they are.
So what do you hope, or what do you
I don't
want,
know,
or what
man.
do you think about,
I
like, what
want
happens? So it's out there. We're going to have a lot. Here's the question. A lot of folks are going to learn about it now, right? Maybe people listen to the show. They're going to learn more about your involvement on it. We've talked to people in the cannabis space about what's it's like to tell the story again and again and again and again. Dustin, if you start to open up about these subjects, the inevitable thing that happens is we talk about it. Thank you, Gibbie Dowdy from illicitglass.com, talking with us today about this really important topic and about what makes Dustin, starting with why cannabis, and this part, both Dustin's, both the positive and the negative of cannabis with this facility, Ivy Ridge Academy, New York. So it's out there. The information's out there. You may have to tell this story a little more succinctly, a lot more in the future, right? What do you hope happens? I mean, obviously,
well,
it's more
I think
awareness. Like,
it's
what do you feel like? What do you think it's going to be like in the next few years, like for you and going through this?
as much as I want to empower others to not make the same mistakes I've done. I think right now, a lot of these documentaries that are coming out, and this isn't the first one. There are
Well, like we said at the beginning, there's that one that just came out about the Nickelodeon days and the actor who was, abused. You're going to more and more, and it started with
so it starts with
the
healing.
acceptance. Yeah. More and more people are comfortable sharing
And this
trauma.
conversation is able to be had when there are
Yes.
factual, provable scenarios that you can actually recall when it comes time to discuss certain things. And so now that facts are out, Ivy Ridge they were one of the only idiots out of all the facilities that shut down. They were one of the only fucking ones to leave every ounce of evidence left in the building, all security tape footages, all medical records, all conversations and between parents. They had the treasure trove of evidence that was not able to be found until courageous students went into that facility years afterwards and found the shit in the dumpster, found the shit in the rooms, searched for fucking closure in it. And because of that, they have alone facilitated this conversation to be allowed to happen with the thousands, the tens of thousands of parents around the country, with now the senators and the congressmen and the local mayoral people allowing facilities to be built in their townships, and the need to look deeper into what is actually happening within our own fucking borders. Sometimes that's, like that conversation means it did what it's supposed to do. Will the next generation of kids and students actually be able to be the ones to come in and rebuild the wall into something more positive? That's what I would like to see. Right now, these documentaries are tearing down the walls that were created over the last 20 years. The new generation is going to have to come in and decide what is the right answer. How do we solve this problem within our border? And what does that solution look like? And I'm not sure it's going to come now or in 3 years or in 10 years, because it's a big fucking business with a lot of shell companies who you can't fight very easily, but this conversation is happening. And I hope to God that some of these families can be brought back together, because some of them haven't talked to their children since the riot.
Well, and that's the thing. If you listen to why she specifically made this documentary, it was for her dad, pretty much, like, because she wanted him to believe her. And like, a lot of the trauma is like, we all just want our parents' approval. Yeah. And that's the big thing. It's like, you're going through this whole thing and you're looking for approval. As a kid, you get to that age where you need the approval, and, having these programs that you have to go through to get approval, or saying that you have to do all these things. I mean, that's what that's what gets me the most is, the requirement of approval, and like how they can hang it over your head and manipulate it into being something different, and that's bringing light to that is probably the biggest thing. It's like, just parents, love your kids and, approve of them.
Yep. That's what I want to end it on. Parents, just love your fucking kids and approve of them.
It feels so simple, right, to say that. And I think, and let's be real, it's a struggle. I think I have kids. Sometimes it's hard. You want to, there's this fine line between educating and disciplining and loving and helping and preparing for the future, right? And it's tough sometimes, and it's tough for the kids, as like you have these difference of opinions. But I think the biggest takeaway I have learned from this was, about those open communication lines and being able to talk. And when the other person does talk, even if you are suspicious of their lack of truth, even if you aren't sure that this person, and I'm going to hopefully take this away, Dustin, from this conversation, when my daughter, who just learned how to drive, I already got no fender bender, but she was honest and forthcoming about that. She's probably mad that I just put that on the internet. But even when they have, the more open you can be with them, when something bad happens, they're more likely to come and talk to you. And I think that's something I am trying to work on when having like teenagers and stuff, is they pull away and they don't always open up. And even if there are terrible, bad things, and you see these cases of kids who are bullied, and instead of, talking, they kind of go the opposite route, and they decide to take away their own lives versus trying to help it because they're scared to talk about it. And so I think that's a big part that I hope comes from this. Obviously, Dustin, thank you. I don't know if it's thank you, but I'm proud and honored to know you, first of all, to be able to share the last decade of getting to know you. I have heard a little bit about this, Gibbie Dowdy with Listed Glass. Obviously heard a lot more. But to have this, as you said, validation is that same thing, like having a child talk and having it listen. So I hope coming out of this, I can be a better, listener of those moments when I'm suspicious. Hopefully
and though validation feels good 10 years later, validation immediately feels a lot fucking better.
You're awesome, Dustin. There you go. There's some validation for you. Do you feel lighter?
I
feel different. Like now, like we talked about it, but you've really talked about it for almost 2 straight hours.
Yeah, and I think like
lighter
now. It's just that currently, because I am associating and have associated with a lot of people who also went through the same scenarios that I did. There's a lot of buzz because of all this right now. And so
we will hashtag that up. Don't you worry. I am also cynical as shit. So
I feel like it's going to take me having to step back offline for a couple weeks and not watch it play out very much anymore to get back into my own groove and my own mentality, instead of looking up old videos that I have of me getting restrained, like.
Yeah, you don't want to revisit that. Did you ever picture, Gibbie, like hearing the story for so long that you'd be sitting here hearing Dustin tell it to, 50 people, but hopefully more, because it's an amazing story. Did you ever picture him telling this publicly?
I mean, I remember when we had talked about the documentary and other things in the past. So I knew it was going to come about at some point. I didn't know that it was going to be, relatable to me. I didn't know that I was going to feel the way I felt about, it was going to bring up a lot of my past, watching something, putting, like I said, it was, the first episode was all about me trying to put myself in Dustin's shoes. And then, second one was just, me working through my own stuff. And third one is all anger and feeling, anger for the helplessness of the big situation and everything. So I did not think that I would be on a podcast talking about a #1 Netflix series in the country, the day that after it comes out. I can say that.
No, we are opportunists, clearly.
Yeah. But I mean, it helped. Like, as soon as I watched it, the first thing I called Dustin was like, dude, you have to talk about this. Like, you have to like get on here, because I know the details. Like, having people tell me my story and have the details be wrong, it's like, I mean, not necessarily wrong, but like everybody's details are different.
Just know the experience is the experience. And dude, trauma affects you to remember experiences totally different. And I'm not sure that, like things that I remember, things that I can picture happening, did they happen in the same way? Without some of this visual proof that I got in certain scenarios, it's like, fuck, it just, your brain is so inundated and manipulated. What the fuck? What you take away is, you're lucky if you're able to take away any of it. You're lucky if you can truly remember. It's almost like you're going, yeah. So fucking A. We talked about
It's been pretty incredible. I appreciate Dustin once again being able to sit here, share that story, talk about this. The movie right now, the program Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. It's on Netflix. It's the #1 rated show right now. You have a chance to watch it, and you're gonna feel that. And Dustin's here. Let him know. I think if you put some comments in there, Dustin will respond. He'll let you know. He likes that validation immediately into there. So check out the documentary. Dustin, I don't think I would do it if I'm being super real. You know me, I'm very more superficial a lot, and it would be harder for me to share that information publicly. So I just like, I feel like dad mode. I just want to hug you. I want to like do those things. You're so far away. We'll give you an air hug for that. But I'm proud. I'm really proud that you put yourself out there and pulled off some wounds, some band-aids off some wounds, regardless of what reception might be. And I think that rawness is what helps people heal, right? When people, even the people who put this out, or Gibbie out here talking about the military, talking about his experiences, it can annoy people, and they have different versions and they can make them angry. But the only way any of this ever changes, the only way anything changes is openness, right? Telling people about it. You can't hide it. So thank you with Catherine Kubler, who really was the person that worked hard to put this documentary together. She's like the main focus of it for that. So thank you everyone that's listening. Dustin, Gibbie, with final thoughts, I guess we're going to wrap it up here, but anything to say to kind of wrap this up?
I do. We say it all the time on here. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And this is the case of a bunch of kids going far with each other, and how they can overcome, and how they have overcome and overcame some of the craziest things that may ever happen to them in their life. So fucking shout out to everybody who's ever been in one of these schools or anything similar, and fucking just know you are awesome and you are worth it. So appreciate you guys.
For sure. Gibbie, closing thoughts?
I'm really glad that Dustin's had an opportunity to, open himself up and get some of it out there. I know that's helped me talk about things in the past and get over it. And it doesn't really matter. You said that people's opinion about things we said. It's like, I don't think I, or you, or did anything other than just try to get the information out there, and like talk about it and like allow somebody to have a platform. That's really what I wanted to be here for, is to encourage Dustin to have a platform and then actually talk about this stuff, to, keep moving forward with his life and not be defined by the moments of things that happen, because they don't define him. That's the biggest thing, is like everybody who is involved in this, or everybody's involved in a situation like this or something similar, it can define them, but you can, certainly take the steps so that it doesn't define you. And that's the thing, is like trying to move forward and even if it does define you, find the positive part of it, because like a lot of things that happen bad, they do define people, but like Dustin said, there are a lot of positives that can come out of the worst situations. And so if you give a bunch of lemons, make some lemonade.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but it was a great, you caught me off guard with the straight old school analogy. All right, everyone, thank you for listening. Let's say goodbye. We'll keep everyone on screen as we say goodbye. Thank you to Gibbie Dowdy with Licit Glass, licitglass.com. We'll put a link below. Check him out, support it. You learned a little bit more about his story today, and it is an amazing company with some amazing products if you're into that. Thank you to Dustin Kava. Dustin Kava, the man, the myth, the legend, sharing his story. It was
awesome. I appreciate it.
It was a lot, and I'm glad you shared it, and I hope you feel lighter. Let us know what you thought, right? Let us know. Give Dustin some support. Check out the documentary. We appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you for listening to this really special episode of the Because Cannabis podcast. Give us a subscription. We would appreciate brand new episodes every Wednesday, except for today, at 4:20 p.m. Thursdays on Spotify with video, anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.